G'day there, guys. I saw that Trousers was getting a bit too much love on the last few episodes, so I brought Possum in to balance things out. So she wants to say hi, how's it going? It's your main man Markee here, and welcome back to another episode of r/AmITheA. Now, if you love this dog, if you love the other white dog, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, and get ready for some bloody good content. Thank you. Posted by user Grand Thief Bluebird. Titled, Am I the a-hole for not giving my money to help out my sister? Alright, so this might sound like a horrible thing for the title, but please hear me out. This is a hard topic for me, and English isn't my native language, so I apologize in advance. I'm an 18-year-old man, and my sister is 22. Ever since we were young, she was always the priority for my parents. Now, don't get me wrong, they never treated me badly, but she was obviously the one they put more effort into. She would get better clothes, a better room, an allowance, and other things. While I was never treated badly, things weren't as good for me. I was never given any pocket money by my parents, thus I started to work really early, at the age of 14. As I've learned a few skills in programming and had a good portfolio by then, from GitHub, it was easier for me to get freelancing jobs. In my country, there's some banks that allow people underage to open accounts, but they're still under supervision of their parents. Since I started to work, I became somewhat of an introvert, but that's not the point. Most of my adolescence I spent working on projects. Everything I got, I used to help out with bills at my house and save the rest on my account. The reason I did that was because it's my dream to go to a specific university. It's my dream school, as they have an extremely respected course in programming. And while college itself is free in my country, living isn't. And that school is one of the most expensive cities in my country. Now I'm finally 18, and we're in the middle of entrance exams. I already passed in the first test with flying marks, and I believe the next one shouldn't be a problem as well. However, since I turned 18, I'm no longer suitable for the same kind of bank account I had, which is only for underage and needed to change. My mother and I went to the bank to change the account, and during that time, she saw the amount I had saved. I won't put numbers in here, but it's enough for me to live without working for the duration of the course, though it won't be a frugal life. That day during dinner, she and my father started to talk about what I want to do in the future, and I explained to them. However, after a few moments, they stopped me in my tracks. They said that while it was all good that I had an objective, right now, my sister was in financial trouble, as she had just had her second kid, and her husband and her could really use some help. My mother asked me to give my sister my savings, and I was really shocked. I told her how much I worked for that, and that it was my money, and I didn't want to give it to my sister, as that meant not going to my dream college, since my parents couldn't support me living there. My father said, "Well, you're still young, and you can always earn more money. Your sister needs it." We argued more, and I went to my room. However, I'm being constantly harassed and called an asshole by my family. There's so much of this that I can't help but feeling like I'm a horrible person. So, am I the a-hole? So personally, I think this is a very situationally dependent thing when it comes to your money. Now say if your sister needed life-saving medication for her or her child and there was no one else to turn to, then yeah, I say that you would be an a-hole for holding back that money in my point of view. Now, I don't want to be one to shame people for their choices or anything. I just think that if you know that having a second child is going to cause you to be in financial trouble, then perhaps prevent yourself from getting pregnant until that's not something that's going to happen, i.e. the financial trouble. I respect that accidents happen, but I also know that we have preventative measures that are very much effective in this day and age. In this situation, it is not the job of an 18-year-old who's been working since the age of 14 to pick up the slack for a married 22-year-old with 2 kids. Never in my life would I ask that of a sibling in that situation, and as a parent, I would be ashamed to ask that. Doubling down on it and constantly calling the 18-year-old an asshole when it's pretty apparent everyone here knows damn well they're not going to reimburse that money makes everyone but OP suck here. Now, I understand that's me making assumptions here in this situation, but I think we can pretty accurately deduce that if the mother sees the money in OP's bank account and says, I can spend this on my daughter, I can help my daughter out, and not give two damns about OP's future when he's given that speech, I would say that that mother is kind of morally bankrupt here. Enough so that I don't think that she would reimburse that money, and I don't know if she would force the daughter to reimburse it either. So I'm going with OP, not the a-hole. Now in the comments, Bunny Ears says, not the a-hole. Call your bank and make them aware of this and warn them of this. Make sure your account is in your name only and no one else can withdraw money. All the best to you. This, and if possible, some banks will even allow you to specifically put a list of people who are not allowed to be anywhere near the account and will call you if they try. I Lost My Knees says, not the a-hole. If your sister is old enough to have 2 children and a husband, she's old enough to get her finances in line. Not to mention, it's your money, you earned it, and nobody should be forcing you to do anything that you don't want to do with it. The fact that they took one look at your bank account and said, this should all go to our daughter, really does not sit right with me. And he already gave a large portion to help with the household for his parents, which means they have more to give this sister. He already gave way more than his parents or sister are entitled to. Whoa, OP. I'm sorry your parents have played favorites, and in doing so, may have weakened the favored child to such an extent that they now want the unfavored, red, strong child to subsidize their mistake. It happens a lot everywhere around the world, and it's a common story. 1. Do not give your savings for university to your sister. She has a husband and a family. If your parents feel she needs financial help, then they can help her. They can mortgage their own retirement/future. You are not there as a money tree. This is not a free-for-all on your savings. What they're suggesting is very, very wrong. Stand strong. 2. Depending on the nature of your sister's financial struggle, is there a health issue? Does your niece or nephew need medical attention? And, depending on the relationship you two have, you may want to reach out directly to her and just have a conversation. You may decide that you want to help just a little, but you absolutely do not have any obligation to do so, and you certainly should not consider giving so much that you cannot attend university. Know that any amount you give your sister will never be repaid and will simply disappear into the vaporsphere. What did I say? This is usually how these things go, and one day she will come back for more. The psychology of getting free money that people don't personally work for but someone else did, is that they don't respect that money. And we know what happens when people don't respect money. It slips through their hands like water. So just know that. And 3, you should never ever give your parents access to your accounts. I'm sure you know this, but just have to reiterate. They are not reasonable people and cannot be trusted. Not the a-hole, and congrats on all of your accomplishments and opportunities. So, what do you guys think of this one? Was I right? Was I an a-hole in my commentary? As I see in the comments a lot, I skip over those comments, I'm sorry. Let me know what you think of these ones down in the comments below. What do you think of this story? Is there a world where OP is the a-hole? I would love to know. And what would you know, there is an update to this story. Now OP says, first of all, I want to thank everyone who sent amazing ideas and good vibes. I can't really express how much I appreciate all of that. A few people have commented and sent me messages asking for an update. I apologize for the delay, but a lot of things happened. First, thank you all who told me to change accounts and banks. While that account was already under my name alone, I took the extra step of changing banks. Now, about the whole problems with my family. After I read the replies in the post, I knew I wasn't in the wrong and decided to confront my parents on that. I told them I was not going to give up my dream, especially since I worked so hard to achieve it. That escalated our conflict, especially after they found out I changed banks, and it all culminated with my parents kicking me out of their house. I expected them to be angry, but I never expected that overreaction. Regardless, I can't really cry over spilt milk. I managed to find a friend who allowed me to stay over at his house for a few days, and that's the reason why I haven't updated this sooner. I stayed for a few days and decided that it was time for me to move to the city in which I hope to attend college. Now I found an apartment and I already moved cities. I will need to find work for now, as currently I don't have a roommate, as I was hoping to find one once college started. To be honest, I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing right now, but that's something I'll have to learn. I changed all my documents, and especially the place I'll be taking the second stage of the entrance exam, so all I can do now is wait and see what the future has in store for me. For those who asked about my sister, I contacted her after I was kicked out and explained to her the situation. She was mortified and told me that she never once asked our parents for help or money. She said she was indeed tight on money, but noting she and her husband couldn't handle and she would never accept my money. Just to make sure, I have absolutely no resentment of my sister. While we did grow apart once she got married, she still is my sister. I believe she didn't really have anything to do with my parents' behavior, and I'm very thankful for that. I absolutely adore my niece, and I'm looking forward to meeting my nephew one of these days. Anyway, my parents still very much think that I'm an a-hole and an ungrateful child, still sending messages and stuff like that. I'm just ignoring it for now, but I can't say that it doesn't hurt to see my own parents say stuff like that. Well, anyway, I just want to thank you all once more for everything. Stay safe, everyone. Now in the comments, Deleted says, I didn't see your original post, but after reading everything, I have a feeling your parents would have taken the money from you and offered it to your sister, not once mentioning that it was yours. I'm glad you got away from them, and you're still on good terms with your sister, dude. And Ella McHugh replies, right? Especially as sis was horrified. Anyway, the parents seem like the types who would murder a milk cow for steaks, then complain they were out of cheese and milk for the next month. Like, they're gonna try and drain OP and his money in the future anyway, and it would be beneficial that they support his training/education plans for building his career. But nope, short-sighted and gratuitous. Terrified Squid says, this seems much less about your sister, and far more about controlling you by keeping you poor. Let me guess, they wanted you to give them the money and they'd pass it on to your sister? Either planning to take credit, or she just wouldn't see all of it. I could just be assigning them extra a-hole traits, not that they need it, but doing this without your sister's knowledge is creepy as hell. Block your parents. Don't read their messages, because they kicked you out. They forfeited their right to any info about your life. Send letters back unopened. And good luck at university, OP. Your parents had a clear vision of your entire life for you. You were meant to be the beleaguered but doting son, forever slogging through mediocre job after mediocre job to make ends meet while living with them and supporting them after they retire. Any sense of power or fulfillment they lose from retiring from their jobs can then be spent criticizing and correcting you, your career, choice in romantic partner, or any other perceived shortcomings. They would have fed you crumbs of affections and praise every now and then, so guilting you would still be a valid tactic despite these decades of unfair treatment. All throughout, your sister would have been their one shining achievement, with any criticism from you or their own consciences quelled in infancy when they think of her thriving elsewhere and what an excellent job they did with her. That's what they were really upset about, losing what they had thought would be the next 30 or so years of their lives. They didn't even really know or care about your sister's financial situation or possible solutions. Now, moving on to our next post by user RamusR3, titled, Am I the a-hole for yelling at my sister for taking my favorite stuffed animal? Now, I know I sound childish, but hear me out. I have a younger sister. She's 8 years old and is obsessed with stuffed animals and has an extensive collection of stuffed animals in her room. I'm nearing 16 and have a couple that my sister is allowed to take if she wants them, except for 3 of them. One is a teddy with a t-shirt that has a photo of one of our old dogs who died 5 years ago. The second is a Bonnie teddy from Five Nights at Freddy's that my boyfriend won for me on one of those stupid rigged claw machines on a school trip. And the third, and most important for this story, is a really old stuffed dog that looks like a border collie that I've had since I can remember, and I named her after my border collie Tess, who I've had since I was 5 and was extremely close to. But she recently became more sentimental after Tess passed 4 years ago. The first two always stay on a shelf, but Tess stays on my bed, and I sleep with her at night because she brings me an odd sense of comfort. Like I said, I was extremely close to Tess. I spent nearly 6 years of my life with that dog, and she was my best friend, and my sister was only 3 years old when she passed away. Today, I came home from a run to see Tess gone from where I put her, and instantly panicked and tipped my room upside down to look for her, and I couldn't find her. I went to my dad in tears, and the idea that my sister took her didn't even cross my mind, but then I went to ask her if she could help me look. My sister had Tess having tea with her other teddies, and I snapped at her, shouting that she had no right to go into my room and take my stuff without permission, especially when I told her she could take literally any other teddy bear but the 3 that I'd told and showed her that she couldn't have. She got mad at me and told me that I was overreacting and Tess was only a dog, and that this was only a teddy, and I was too old to be sleeping with a stuffed animal. My dad says he understands that I was upset, but I shouldn't have shouted at my sister, and I should apologize because she doesn't understand and is only a little kid, but I think I'm valid in being mad because she knew how important Tess was to me as both the dog and the stuffed animal, and I told her not to take Tess from my room, and then I showed her which one Tess was. Plus, I'm mad that she said Tess was only a dog, and it's been 5 years since she passed away, and I should be over it by now since we have new dogs. So am I the antagonist for shouting at my sister? I guess I'm going to come back to the fact that she's 8 years old and you're 16 years old. I'm not sure if she's reached that stage yet, but I feel like she thinks she knows everything and she's an authority on these subjects. That puts it into weird territory because she's kind of ignorant of that fact, and I think shouting here was justified so that she can no longer be ignorant of that. You're kind of reprogramming that brain by shouting orders directly into it and being like, let's beat some sense into you. Are you stupid? You didn't experience the death of my dog. I loved Tess. You don't understand, child. So I wouldn't attribute malice to what this 8-year-old is doing. I think it's completely out of ignorance, and I think she's technically being an a-hole for that. OP is within their rights to have yelled because that's what siblings do, and she's educating the child. I'm saying OP is not the a-hole for this one. Now in the comments, I Love Cat 17 says, not the a-hole. She knew better and needed to be yelled at. Your parents should have punished her. If they refuse to, I will let her know that she is no longer allowed to touch anything of yours. Not the a-hole. You're allowing her to take literally any other teddy except for 3. That should be enough. And Ashara Light says, not the a-hole. I'm 30 years old and still have possession of my favorite doll from childhood. I am never getting rid of her and probably will not be giving it to my kids. People bond emotionally with objects for various reasons, and there is nothing wrong with expecting others to respect your boundaries and stay away from personal items. And Firestorm999 says, everyone sucks here. I'd have said not the a-hole if your sister was your age or only a little younger, but shouting at a child isn't cool. Sis is still the primary a-hole though, especially for the only a dog comment. It's possible she doesn't understand how much the stuffed Tess means to you, but saying that about your actual pet was deliberately cruel. Edited to add, if your dad's going to pressure anyone to apologize, he should go after her first. Now, we're going to go straight to the update for this one, and OP says, thank you to anyone who commented on my post about my sister. You were all very understanding and helpful. I have told her that though I'm not mad, and I'm sorry for shouting the way that I did, she was now no longer allowed in my room without my permission or if I wasn't there. And I explained thoroughly why, so that she understood. She apologized for taking Tess and understood why I was upset, even though she still thinks I'm a jerk for yelling at her. I sat down with her and showed her the picture of Tess that I had, and I told her stories of Tess, like how she refused to leave my sister's Moses basket when she was a baby, and if my sister had even slightly fussed or moved, Tess went to my dad or me and had us check on her. After explaining what Tess meant to me and how much I loved her, my sister understood a lot more as to why I was upset. We are both better now and spending more time together. I also want to defend my dad a little. He's never really had to deal with this type of argument before. I mean, me and my sister have argued before, but it would have lasted maybe a couple of hours. This lasted a couple of days, and my dad thought we'd be able to work it out. And in the comments, AnnaBanana3468 says, "Thank you for the update. I'm glad everything worked out. You did the right thing setting a new boundary." Loudens2 says, "I think you need to sit down and explain the same thing to your dad. We make mistakes sometimes, and I think he needs to understand so he can navigate this better in the future." And Dying Stars 28 says, "I lost my small teddy bear that I've had since a preschool teacher gave it to me, and I'm so bummed. I think about it randomly like every other month and look all over my bedroom again, but I haven't found it. I can't even find a similar one. I never took it out of the house, so I have no idea where it could have gone. I know my parents wouldn't have thrown it out or anything. I have other stuffed animals in my closet that are still there." And OP replies, "Aw, I'm so sorry. I would be devastated. I hope you find your stuffed teddy bear soon." And our next post is by user Hectic Kitten, titled, "Am I the a-hole for abandoning my friend/roommate and possibly leaving him houseless?" So I, 21 female, live with my best friend, 21 male, Dan. We've been friends for 3 years and moved in together about a year and a half ago. It was okay for a bit, but it's gone to crap. I keep up on chores while also cleaning up after myself. Dan does not. He's inconsistent with chores. He rarely vacuums, never sweeps, doesn't keep up on his dishes, cleans his cat's litter box twice a month, etc., etc. This is an issue as the washer and dryer are in his bathroom. There is often litter and sometimes feces on the ground from one of the cats kicking it out. We have 3 cats. I've talked to him and even started a chore chart, but it was forgotten and nothing changed. I've started to feel used. Dan depends on me, cleaning the house, taking care of his diabetic cat, putting his new car on the lease, etc. 3 weeks ago, I told him I was no longer taking care of him. I told him we needed to split ways after the lease ended in November of 2021, as it felt our friendship was suffering. 2 weeks ago, he was house-sitting and asked me to get the mail because he had a package. I was on my way from work and it was pouring when he asked. I hate the trek to the mailbox, especially in the rain. I decided to do it the next day, but my mental health got bad and I couldn't get out of bed. At 9 p.m. I texted him and apologized for not getting the mail. He seemed upset and said that he needs the mail and he can't get it until 11 p.m. when he's off work. I snapped. I felt like I was being guilted. I know we both need to check the mail, but this was the final straw. I told him it wasn't my responsibility, and it ended with me telling him that I wanted to move out ASAP and not be friends. He was fine with it and refused to talk to me. He told me he'd be moving in with a friend and I started to figure out things on my end. I talked to my leasing office and got on a list to get a 1-bedroom unit. I checked with Dan 2 separate times about moving. He told me that his plans were solid and he was adamant about not finishing the lease. I found out I could get my apartment by the end of this month, and I asked Dan if this would work for him. He said yes. The next morning, he came to me to talk. He wanted to fix our friendship and stay till the end of the lease. This was a complete 180 from what he said before. He told me the person he was moving in with could only let him stay until May because she's selling her house, and he said that he didn't have anywhere to go after that. I held firm on moving out, but said that I was open to fixing our friendship. I told him he could get on a list for a one-bedroom apartment in the complex and stay with the friend until then. I emphasized that I need this for my own sake. When I talked to my girlfriend about this, she made me feel like I was an a-hole for abandoning my friend and essentially leaving him houseless. I feel conflicted because I care about Dan, but I think it's time for him to grow up. I also feel he was disingenuous about wanting to fix our friendship and only wanted to do so because his plans fell through. And I would say that you're bang on the money with that intuition there, OP. He didn't want to contact you about reconciling or fixing anything to do with the housing situation and your friendship till he'd exhausted all of his options. You shouldn't be made to feel like you're a last resort and a backup plan for anyone. Now, I wouldn't feel bad about moving out into my own one-bedroom apartment in this situation, and neither should you. I get your girlfriend wants to be empathetic and compassionate to your friend going through a rough time, but after everything you've been through, now is not the time for building and mending bridges. Do what's right for you and force your friend to be an adult and actually take some ownership over their mistakes and laziness, not the a-hole OP. Now in the comments, Caro SCP says, "Take the one bed, he's only thinking of himself, not the a-hole multiplied by the 2,700 votes. May your housemate be forced to recycle used baby nappies by hand for a full calendar year for being so self-absorbed." And he's not going to be homeless. He has somewhere to stay until May, which is loads of time to find a new place. Keep in mind this was posted 3 months ago. I do wonder though if he'll last with his other friend if he continues to let his cats mess everywhere and doesn't clean up after himself. Not the a-hole. Dan has definitely taken advantage of you. You need to do what's best for you. Dan needs to learn that his actions have consequences. Or inaction has consequences. Not the a-hole. There was a plan that you both agreed to. Move along with your plan. His problem is not your problem. Agreed. Dan's an adult that made adult decisions, communicated as an adult, and is fully capable of taking care of his own affairs. None of Dan's problems are your problems. Don't make them yours. And how are you leaving him houseless? He has 2 housing options available to him right now. He can take over your current apartment without you, or have someone else move in as his new roommate, or he can move into his friend's home for the next 4 months until he finds a new place. If he can't get his living situation sorted in the next 4 months, then that's a him problem. Don't set yourself on fire to keep him warm. Living with him is having a negative impact on your mental health and comfort at home. It's okay to prioritize your needs over his convenience, not the a-hole. And now onto the update. So I held firm on Dan and I moving as soon as we could. He didn't seem happy about this, but didn't complain too much. As I suspected, after having that conversation, he went back to how he'd been treating me before. I decided after a few days of this to have a talk with him. I addressed how it felt, as if he did a 180 after his plans fell through, and how his reach out to repair the friendship felt disingenuous. He denied all of it, and refused to validate any of my feelings. I found this interesting because he's notorious for preaching about validating others' feelings. After that conversation, he began to move his things out of the place that he's staying at temporarily. He told me he took his name off the list for a one-bedroom apartment because he'd rather find someone else to live with in May. He moved all of his things out 2 weeks ago, and I've been at the apartment by myself ever since. Of course, after his things were out, I told him he'd be responsible for cleaning his room and bathroom. I asked him to clean the walls of his room as he smoked copious amounts of weed in there, and I didn't want to get grilled by the apartment complex for the residue lingering on the walls. He did a half-assed job, of course, and left the bathroom half-assed too. He came to grab his W-2s from the house last weekend, and I asked him to redo the walls, but he forgot by the time he left. He also had a huge stack of dishes that he conveniently forgot to take care of when he originally moved his things out. On top of all of that, he lost the parking pass that we got for the apartment, and now that's a $50 bill coming out of the deposit that I paid on my own. I told him if I get charged for any damages caused by him, he melted a hole in the carpet of his room, he would be paying me back. We'll see if he follows through. I'm at peace with us not repairing the friendship, and quite frankly, don't want to. After all of this came to light, I realized that even prior to living together, Dan was using me. I got my keys to my new place yesterday and move everything tomorrow. I'm of course taking all the cats, and they will be loved and cared for as they so rightfully deserve. To touch on the girlfriend situation, we're long distance currently, so she didn't know the extent of the situation. She is very angered by his actions and how he's treated me after I let her in on more of what happened. Thank you for the support I received. It helped me do what's best for myself. Now in the comments, Calm in the Desert says, be ready for Dan to come sniffing around when the place he's staying in gets sold. Figures he withdrew from the list for a one-bedroom. He wants to find another roommate situation where someone else does the cleaning. $10 says that the friend he's staying with until she sells in May gets fed up with him in a few weeks. Congrats on your new place. I didn't see your original post and I agree that you were not the a-hole. He was never going to be suddenly homeless. He had a place to go for months of the short term while he looked for another more long-term situation. And OP replies, interestingly enough, Dan had lived with this friend when he first moved to this part of town, and she asked him to find housing elsewhere after about 3 months. I have a feeling she gave him this deadline for the same reason she asked him to leave before. I'm glad you're taking care of the cats. I cringed when I read your original post. 3 cats and twice monthly litter box cleaning? What the hell? And OP replies, I think my comment kept getting buried, but we had 3 boxes, and I cleaned the other 2 daily. Dan was in charge of 1 that was cleaned on his time, unfortunately. But I assure you that the kittens are happy and healthy with me. They've already settled in nicely to the new place. And honestly, I would hold on to his stuff until you get the money settled. Petty, yes, but he needs to understand actions have consequences. And OP replies, I don't have any of his things anymore. He was able to get it all out. There was a delay in posting the update since a mod had to approve it, but the house is empty and I'm all moved now. I'm going back to do some cleaning and dropping the keys off this evening. Alright guys, that's the end of the video. Friendly reminder that I'm now posting daily on my second channel, Markee 2. If you want to laugh at memes with me, link is down in the description below. On phone, you just click that little arrow underneath the video. I also want to say thank you to all my channel members and Patreon subscribers. Your names are currently floating down the screen here, and I love to see all of you guys. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Thank you for supporting me. I really appreciate it. If you see yourself on screen, I want you to give yourself a big pat on the back for being amazing as always, and thank you for supporting me again. I do hope that you guys have a good day, night, sleep, whatever it is you're up to. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.